A liberty Republican is somebody in a lot of ways that believes the core principles of republicanism, which dovetail nicely with libertarianism in small government. I believe in government ought to be smaller in size, smaller in scope, and smaller in intrusiveness. And those are core principles that we all ought to live by. I've done a lot of work around criminal justice reform, around drug policy reform, civil asset forfeiture reform, foster care reform. A lot of it has to do with drug policy, how our laws treat marijuana, medical marijuana, that sort of thing. And I think there's a unique place for criminal justice in the world we live in, where it's a bipartisan issue and everyone agrees it's all messed up.
How receptive are conservative Republicans to changing drug policy, for instance, in Mississippi?
So not receptive to radical changes, but very receptive to fixing laws that are unjust and are not working as intended. And so a lot of times, like with civil asset forfeiture and other things, people look at the system and say, well, it's not even doing what it was originally intended to do. We'll at least fix it, or we'll provide transparency. And so I worked a lot on an initiative that resulted in all civil asset forfeiture is being posted online. Every time something is seized or forfeited from a Mississippi citizen, it now has to go on forfeiture.ms.gov. So we brought incredible transparency to it while we're trying to reform all these systems. So I think very open, as long as you're talking about reform, more radical changes is a step-by-step process, or you may have to take it to the people with a ballot initiative or something like that.
And that's something you're part of. You're taking it to the people.
Yes, I'm passionate about specifically medical marijuana. I lost both my parents to cancer right out of college, and that was the only thing that was not available to them. And now we have the opioid epidemic, and a lot of people are on opioids because they don't have access to medical marijuana. States with medical marijuana have 25% fewer opioid overdose deaths than states without. So for a state like Mississippi struggling with the opioid epidemic, like every other state, allowing medical marijuana as an alternative to opioids is the #1 thing the state can do to bring down that death rate. So I'm very passionate. I introduced a medical marijuana bill 3 years in a row. Of course, it's just not the sort of thing that's going to go through the legislative process, but it's absolutely the sort of thing that the people of Mississippi are ready for and ready to do. The things I'm super passionate about, I try to get involved and fit in where I don't see a Republican leading. So if I was not in the legislature, there would not be somebody that wakes up every day thinking about civil asset forfeiture reform and occupational licensing reform and drug policy reform and all of these things. If I was not helping with medical marijuana, it would have no chance in Mississippi. So I wake up every day, and when I see people doing something that I'm passionate about, I back down. There's no reason for me to be involved in something that someone else is already doing. When I see a big void in the marketplace, whether it's medical marijuana in Mississippi, criminal justice reform in the legislature, or the need for a national group that brings together liberty-minded elected officials at the state level, when I see that void in the marketplace, my business instincts kick in and I have to fill that void. As soon as I fill that void, I'm happy to hand it off to someone else or to take a step back. But I just can't live in a world that's broken, where there's things that need to be fixed, and I just sit there and watch. It's just not how I'm wired.
So we had the Ron Paul revolution. We now have Rand Paul, Senator Mike Lee, Justin Amash, Thomas Massie at the federal level. Do you think that the future of the Republican Party is liberty? Are they going to make that choice?
I think that's the only viable future for the Republican Party, is of the ways you can go, of the ways the Republican Party can head, the liberty wing or the liberty direction of the Republican Party, it's the one that, A, it's right on principle, B, it's appealing to the most people, and it will actually solve the issues they're struggling with. So I certainly think that's where things are going. And we used to have 0 liberty-minded state-level elected officials. And then we had Justin Amash and others. And now we have 30, 50, 70, something like that, liberty-minded elected officials spread around the country. Those numbers are growing every single day, every single election cycle, and I think that is the future.
Love it. Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely. Thank you.